Hello, thank you for joining me today. I'm going to be talking a little bit about perspective. This is a subject that people can find daunting or a little bit sort of technical, but it is something that you really do need to understand if you're going to create any sort of artwork that has structure and buildings and what have you inside the image, because everything follows lines of perspective. So what do I mean by perspective? Well, if you look at this image, you can see that it has lines, and all these lines are not just randomly put on there, they're all in line with perspective. So if you see here, look, these lines, they meet, they get smaller and smaller until they end up at a vanishing point. It's what's called a vanishing point. It's where the lines cross. You must have looked down a railway line and seen the rails, they meet and they vanish. That's as far as you can see. Same with the rows of houses. If you're in the middle of the street and the rows of houses just keep going in front of you, they meet and vanish. So that's where, if it carried on going, it would vanish. And we've got the same on the left. That's the vanishing points for this image. They are out the frame, but it's just an example just to show you where they are. So if you're doing anything in this picture, we need to make sure that they follow those same lines. Well, the lines have got to meet at those vanishing points, and they meet on what's called an horizon line. So you've got the horizon line that runs through the picture, and that's basically an indication to where the land ends and the sky starts. So obviously you've looked out to sea and you see the horizon, where the sky starts and the sea ends. So it's basically that horizon line. That is the vanishing point. Basically, it's all the vanishing points are along that horizon line. Now we've got a little bit of an idea of perspective and where the lines are. If we was to start adding things to this picture, we need to make sure that they correspond to the perspective of that image. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add this sort of roof extension to the roof of that image. I'm not going to edit it just for the purpose of this tutorial. I'm just going to open it straight up. And just transfer it over using the move tool. And then I can get rid of this. So I'm just going to make it into a smart object so I can move it around. It's a raw file, so it takes a bit of time because it's quite a big file. I'm just showing you what I do. So I'm just going to resize it just to get it somewhere in proportion to the image. So that's roughly how I'd want it. Now, just to save time, I have already cut it out and put it onto the picture, just to save time. But as you can see, well, you probably can't notice from that angle. You'll probably say, yep, that looks fine. But on closer inspection, when we do a little test to see if it's in proportion, I say proportion, in perspective with the image, we can see if I follow that line of trajectory of the angle of that roof, it's well off. It's way off the mark where it should be. So I need to edit that and reshape it to suit the actual line. So if I draw where it should be, I'll come from the vanishing point to the top of there. That's where it should be. As you can see, it's quite a distance out. And there's a definite line there, so you can see that's out as well. So again, I'm going to go from the vanishing point so there, those lines are a little bit out too. So let's just do that again. There and there. There we go. So we need to come up a little bit there to meet that line, and this line here needs to come up a little bit to meet this line. So what about the front side? Well, that's actually quite good. That's actually in line with the perspective. That's very good. We probably don't have to do much work on the front side. No, that's looking pretty good. Yeah, so we don't really have to touch that front side because we can see that the perspective's already quite in. It's quite accurate. So what we need to do is just play with the roof and this sort of side panel here to get that in line with the perspective lines. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a copy of the extension and I'm going to put a mask on it. Because what I'm going to do is I'm just going to alter the roof and this side panel, and then I'm going to mask out the front, because when I play with the roof it's going to warp this front section and it's going to mess it up. So I need to mask that out. I'll show you what I mean by that. So we're just going to go to Edit, Perspective Warp. And we're just going to draw a grid around this section here. Right, this cross, I don't know where it is, this grid, grid of the perspective tool, we need to marry up to the perspective of sort of these tiles here and also the tiles there, so it's in the range of that, of the perspective of that building. I know it gets confusing, I do apologise. Right, so we're about there. So now I want to warp it, and all I want to do is bring that up to that blue line, which we know is the right perspective, and I'm going to pull that down a little bit. Right, so now all I've done, I just want to go up a little bit. We've got that in line now with that blue line, and we've got that in line with that blue line. Don't worry about this front bit because we're going to mask that out. All we want is that in line and the top of that roof. So when we're happy, hit the OK button. So now go to your mask. And make sure you're painting black. And there we go. So now we've got that building in perspective with the vanishing points of that image. Now the next job would be to get the lighting right, because that's the sort of second major element to doing digital art, is getting the perspective right and getting the lighting right so it suits that original photo. So I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. I hope it's not been too technical. It's something you know you can practice with. There's some great tools on Photoshop to allow you to get the perspective right. I've done it one way, but I would imagine there's hundreds of ways to get the same results. So again, I hope you've enjoyed it. If there are any tutorials that you'd like me to do, please put them in the comments, and I'll try and do a tutorial on a subject that you want help with. Brilliant. So yeah, thanks for watching, and please subscribe. Thank you.